Welcome to the debate. When we think of a prison, I think we usually picture metal bars, right? Heavy locks, thick concrete walls.
Yeah, a highly physical thing.
Exactly. You can actually reach out and touch the barriers that are keeping you trapped.
Right, it's a very clear, defining boundary. I mean, you are on the inside and your freedom is out there on the outside, completely out of reach.
But what if the strongest prison out there doesn't have any walls at all? What if the thing keeping you trapped, the thing limiting your ultimate freedom, is simply the fact that someone else is looking at you?
That is a terrifying thought, honestly.
It really is. Today, we are unpacking an incredibly insightful design by Hot Hot Hot. It takes one of the most famous and honestly misunderstood ideas in philosophy, the idea that hell is other people, and just breaks it wide open.
Yeah, and I have to say, it is an exceptional piece of media. The idea for Hot 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 is perfectly tailored to help a broad American audience grasp these hidden tensions in our everyday interactions. It's got really high production quality.
Absolutely. It takes these massive abstract concepts about human identity and grounds them in a way we can all instantly recognize. Which brings us to the core question of our discussion today. Does the presence of other people act as a prison that limits our freedom and turns us into objects? Or is the presence of other people the essential mirror that actually creates our identity and tells us what we want in the first place?
It's a tough tension to navigate.
Right. So I'll be arguing the first point, which is rooted in the philosophy of Jean-Paul Sartre. I believe that the gaze of other people fundamentally restricts us. It strips away our pure freedom by basically forcing us to be characters in their story.
And I look at this from a very different angle. I lean into the psychoanalytic ideas of Jacques Lacan. I argue that we can't even form our own desires without other people. The gaze of society isn't a trap, it's the very foundation of our sense of self. Without it, we wouldn't even know how to be human.
Well, to understand why the gaze is a trap, I think we first have to understand what makes human beings so unique. Think about an ordinary object, like a chair.
Okay, a chair.
Right. A chair just is. It sits in the corner of the room, it was built with a specific purpose, to be sat on, and it can't suddenly decide it wants to be a dining table tomorrow. Even most animals simply follow their biological instincts, but humans are entirely different. We are conscious.
We have the ability to reflect on our own existence.
Exactly. We experience what philosophers call being thrown into existence. Now, that sounds complicated, but it just means we wake up in this world without an instruction manual.
Yeah, there's no preset purpose.
Right. We weren't built with a specific pre-programmed destiny, like the chair. Because we don't have a fixed purpose, we have to invent one. We project ourselves into the future. We can change careers. We can change our minds. We can completely reinvent our personalities. That endless field of possibility is our ultimate freedom.
I agree that humans are projecting beings. We are always looking ahead. But you're painting this picture of total isolated freedom, and I don't think that's how human psychology actually works.
But the freedom is real until it gets interrupted. That's the catch. This beautiful, open freedom is instantly restricted the moment someone else looks at you.
How so?
Well, when someone else's gaze hits you, your freedom shrinks. You stop being this endless field of possibilities, and you become a defined object in their reality. They label you, they judge you, and in doing so, they put invisible walls around your potential.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning, mostly because it assumes we naturally know what to do with that open freedom. My argument is that our freedom and our choices are entirely shaped by others from day one. There's a famous idea from Jacques Lacan that gets right to the heart of this. He says, man's desire is the desire of the other.
That phrase always trips a lot of people up. It sounds like a riddle.
It does sound like a riddle, yeah. But let's break down the mechanics of how it actually works. It means we don't invent our own desires in an empty room. When you're a child, you don't naturally know what is valuable or what is worth pursuing.
Because you have no frame of reference.
Exactly. You learn what to want by watching what your parents want, what your siblings want, and eventually what your peers want. If your culture values wealth, well, you suddenly want wealth. If your friends think a certain type of music is cool, You start desiring that music. The gaze of other people doesn't just limit us, it gives us our compass. It tells us what has value in the world.
Okay, I see why you think the compass is helpful, but let me give you a different perspective on how that gaze actually feels in practice. Because it rarely feels like helpful guidance, it usually feels like a profound loss of control. Let's look at the famous peephole analogy from the source material. The design by Hut captures this perfectly.
It is a really vivid scenario, for sure.
So imagine you are walking down a quiet hotel hallway. You see a door slightly cracked, or maybe you step up to a peephole. Out of pure curiosity, you look through it. In that specific moment, you are experiencing pure, uninhibited freedom.
Because nobody knows you're there.
Right. You are an invisible observer. You are totally absorbed in the action of looking. You aren't thinking about how your hair looks or what your job title is or whether you are a good person. You are just pure action.
You are completely lost in the moment.
Yes, but then, suddenly, you hear footsteps down the hall.
Oh, yeah.
Someone is walking towards you. Your whole body freezes. Your stomach drops. You feel entirely exposed. The other person has arrived. Now, in that exact moment of hearing the footsteps, isn't your freedom completely stolen?
Stolen is a strong word.
But it is. You go from being a free, invisible observer to being trapped as an object in someone else's story. You are suddenly, the weird guy snooping at a door. How can that be anything but a massive restriction of your freedom?
Sartre's peephole analogy is powerful, I'll give you that. But it completely ignores the baseline psychology of the person looking through that door. Yes, you freeze. Yes, you feel exposed. That sudden wave of shame is the absolute essence of feeling the look. But I argue that this sudden shame is actually proof that we need the other person to truly see ourselves.
Need them? You are feeling intense terror and embarrassment in that moment. How is that a psychological need?
Because think about why you feel shame. You feel shame because for the first time in that scenario, you are finally aware of yourself as a human being in the world. Before the footsteps, as you just said, you weren't thinking about who you were.
I was pure action.
Right, pure action. Honestly, you were acting like an animal on a blind impulse. You had zero self-awareness. It's the approaching footsteps, the arrival of the other person, that snaps you into reality. The other person gives you your self-awareness. They give you your identity. Without them, you are just a blank slate acting on instinct.
That is an interesting point, though I would frame the result very differently. Being snapped into reality might give you self-awareness, but the identity they hand you is a box. It's a label.
A label you can react to, though.
But when that person walking down the hall looks at you, they don't see your complex inner life. They don't know your hopes, your dreams, or the context of your day. They just see a creeper at a door. You instantly become a flattened object in their world. Your existence is hijacked by their perspective.
But without their perspective, do you even exist as a social creature? I mean, if you live your whole life never being seen, never being judged, you aren't really free. You are just living in a void.
Let's look at the emotional cost of that social existence, though, because it leads exactly to why this philosophy resonates so deeply. Sartre illustrated this in his 1944 play, No Exit, and the setup is just brilliant.
Oh, it's a classic.
3 people die and are sent to a single room in the afterlife. They are locked in together forever. They are waiting for the classic torture devices. They expect the flames, the pitchforks, the physical pain.
The traditional medieval version of punishment.
Exactly. But the flames never come. There is no torturer. The real torture is simply being stuck in a room under the constant, inescapable judgment of the other 2 people. And here is the mechanism of why it is torture. Their space, their time, and their sense of self are constantly defined by the mutual gaze.
Because they can't escape it.
Right. Imagine trying to see yourself as a brave, noble person, but the other 2 people in the room constantly look at you as if you are a coward. Because you can't escape their gaze. You can't escape their definition of you.
So they are completely trapped by perception.
Yes, that is exactly why hell is other people. It's not a joke about people being annoying in traffic. It's the deep psychological horror that we are constantly trapped by how people perceive us. We can never just be perfectly, comfortably ourselves when someone else is watching, because their judgment forces us to play a role.
I understand the horror of that scenario, but I just don't buy that it's a form of hell. What you are describing as a torture chamber is actually the basic instruction manual for human development. To explain how this mechanism works, we have to look at Lacan's mirror stage, which the video covers beautifully.
This is taking us back to infancy, right?
Yes. So imagine a baby, roughly 6 months old. At that age, a baby doesn't feel like a whole, unified person. Internally, they just feel like a messy bundle of needs, hunger, and uncoordinated limbs. They don't have a concept of I.
Right. Just chaos.
Pure chaos. But then the baby looks into a mirror and sees its physical reflection. For the very first time, the baby sees a complete, unified image. It identifies with that reflection and essentially thinks, oh, that put-together thing over there, that is me.
Right, but the crucial point is that the image in the mirror is on the outside. It's an illusion of control.
Exactly. It is on the outside. The baby's very first real sense of self comes from an image that is external to their own body. And this physical dynamic translates directly into our psychological dynamic as we grow up. Because our first identity came from the outside, we spend the rest of our lives looking to the outside to figure out who we are.
Meaning we use other people as our psychological mirrors?
Precisely. Our identity and our desires become mediated, meaning they have to pass through a filter. As we grow up, we constantly ask, what does society want from me? What do my peers respect?
Which sounds exhausting.
It can be, but it's necessary. We look at the people around us to figure out what is successful or what is good. We end up desiring their desire. You buy a certain brand of sneakers not because the rubber and fabric naturally appeal to your soul, but because society has deemed them valuable. You call this escapable judgment a hell? I call it a shared reality. Without that external mirror, we wouldn't know how to act, what to want, or who to be.
I'm just not convinced by that argument because it completely brushes past the deep anxiety this system causes. Sure, maybe we learn what to want from society, but look at the heavy toll it takes on our mental state. We are condemned to freedom. We have to make choices every single day, and we carry the burden of those choices. But because of this social mirror you just described, true solitude becomes impossible.
Impossible?
Yes, even when we are completely alone, the internalized wants and judgments of other people act as an invasive force in our minds.
An invasive force? You make the opinions of others sound like a computer virus.
It operates exactly like one. Think about a very common, everyday scenario. Have you ever tried to pick out clothes for an important event, like a job interview or a first date?
Oh, sure, of course.
You are alone in your bedroom. The door is closed. No one is watching you. Yet you try on 5 different outfits, stressing out, staring in the mirror, imagining what your friends will think, what the interviewer will think, what total strangers on the street will think.
That is true. We all do that.
The other people aren't even in the room, but they are in your head, restricting your freedom to just wear whatever is comfortable. You are carrying their heavy gaze everywhere you go. The burden of your own freedom gets so much heavier because you know you are constantly being evaluated against rules you didn't write.
The clothing example is spot on, but I take a completely different lesson from that exact same scenario. If the voices of other people are always in your head, even when you're totally alone in your bedroom, then that proves that the idea of true isolated freedom is a total myth.
A myth? So you're arguing we have no genuine freedom whatsoever?
I'm saying the concept of pure, untouched freedom, this idea that you can magically generate your own perfect, unique choices out of thin air, just doesn't exist for humans. Because we internalize the wants of others, the very future we are projecting ourselves toward is built out of materials provided by the people around us.
But we are projecting beings, as we agreed earlier.
Yes, we are projecting beings. We aim ourselves at the future. But the target we are aiming at was painted by the society we live in. You argue that the gaze of the other interrupts our freedom. I am arguing that the gaze of the other creates the rules of the game we are playing. Without the gaze, there is no game.
I see what you mean, but
If you stripped away all those outside opinions in your bedroom, you wouldn't suddenly be free. You would just be standing there with clothes on the bed, having absolutely no concept of what dressing well even means. We need that social connection to make sense of the world. It's not a prison, it's the fabric of human connection.
But at what point does that comfortable fabric become a straitjacket? Because what Sartre is warning us about is the danger of letting that other define us completely. If you spend your whole life only desiring what society tells you to desire and only acting in ways that pleases the gaze of your peers, you lose your authentic self.
Authentic self is a tricky concept, though.
But it's vital. If you only reflect what others want, you become nothing more than a reflection of a reflection. You forfeit your humanity to become an object for others. That is why he says we must recognize this trap. We are condemned to freedom, which means we have the ultimate responsibility to choose our own path, even when the heavy, judging eyes of society are staring right at us.
That's a fair warning. I don't disagree that people can lose themselves in the expectations of others. We see that all the time with social media and career pressures. But Lacan's point is that you can't just flip a switch and turn off the influence of society to find some hidden, perfectly authentic self. It's baked into our psychology from the moment we looked in that mirror as babies. To try and strip away all the influence of other people to find your true core is a fool's errand. Our identity isn't a hidden gem buried deep inside us. Our identity is the sum of our interactions with the world.
That's a compelling way to frame it. But let me offer one last thought on that. Even if the building blocks of my identity come from society, the architect is still me.
Okay, I like that metaphor.
I still have to put the blocks together. I still have to wake up every single day and make choices. When I am walking down that hallway and I hear those footsteps, yes, I freeze. Yes, I feel the crushing weight of their judgment. But the moment after I freeze, I have a choice. Do I run away? Do I stand up straight and face them? Do I pretend I was looking for my keys? My freedom is interrupted, yes, but it is never fully destroyed. The tension of human life is that I have to constantly fight to maintain my freedom against the gravity of everyone else's judgment.
I actually think we are circling around a shared reality here, just viewing it from opposite sides. You see the influence of others as this massive gravity that pulls you down, restricts your movement, and turns you into an object. I see that exact same gravity as the thing that keeps us grounded so we actually have weight and meaning in the world. We need the gravity of other people to exist.
But on the other hand, without that gaze, we have no identity or desire to be free within the first place, just like the baby learning to want things through the mirror.
Exactly. And navigating that paradox is just part of the human condition, which really highlights why this topic is so enduring. The video designed by Hot 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 Hut captures this tension brilliantly.
It really does. Taking mid-century French existentialism and psychoanalysis and translating it into a visual language that deeply engages an American audience is an incredible achievement.
It takes these ideas out of dusty textbooks and puts them right into our daily lives, into hotel hallways and bedroom mirrors. It's just so practical.
It reminds us that these aren't just academic theories. They are the mechanics of how we interact with our friends, our family, and ourselves every single day.
So we leave the debate here without declaring a winner, because this tension isn't a math problem to be solved. It's a reality we all have to live with. We will always struggle between wanting total, unbroken freedom and needing other people to show us who we are.
It's a tightrope walk that we never quite perfect.
As you go through your day tomorrow, try to pay attention to your own choices. When you decide what to wear, what to say in a meeting, or what long-term goals to pursue, ask yourself a simple question. Are these desires truly your own, or are you just chasing the desires of the people around you? Are you acting freely, or are you just feeling the invisible walls of the prison when someone else is looking?